Okay, to get us started, we're going to look at Andrea Duran on the Olympic team and Team USA. And she's going to take us through some of the things we do before we even swing the bat. So number one is a loose grip. Now, take a look at Andrea's hands, and she's wiggling her fingers before the pitch comes. So you can see she has a nice loose grip, and her hands are right about shoulder height. Her hands aren't crazy high above her head or too low. They're right about shoulder height. The next thing we're going to look at is her stance. So I'm going to draw some lines on here, and you can see she has a nice athletic stance. She has a slight bend to her knees and a slight bend to her waist. Nice athletic stance. The next thing we're going to look at is her stride. So she's going to load the weight on the inside of her back foot, pick up her front foot, and take a small stride towards the pitcher, and that's her stride. And if you look down here at the red line I'm going to draw, she strides right in line with the pitcher. She doesn't stride out this way in the bucket, and she doesn't stride closed towards home plate. She strides right in line to the pitcher. And then the last thing is swing hard. And you can get a sense of how hard she swings. I'll play that again. And she hit this ball for a home run in one of the Olympic games. So again, when everything's in line, swing hard. Okay, so we'll cover some of the basics with Jaimie. Here you're in a pretty nice athletic stance. You're slight bend to the waist, slight bend to the knees. Your hands aren't too high, so that all looks good. And as the pitch comes, you load your weight on your back foot, pick up your front foot, and take a little bit of a stride. So that all looks pretty good. And you swing pretty hard. So I would say that looks pretty good so far. Okay, now we're going to look at how an elite softball player, Andrea Duran on the Olympic team, how she handles a few of the things that we worked on in the hitting camp. And number one is hiding the hands. And this is kind of the wind-up before we unwind and hit the ball hard. So if you notice, if you look in the red circle, we can see her hands there. And if you look at her number, it's a 2 and a something, but we can't read the other number. So she's going to hide her hands and do a little bit of an inward turn, and this is the wind-up before she swings. So I'm going to scroll through the swing here. You can see her hands, and then as the pitch comes, she hides her hands right at her shoulder, and now we can read her other number too. It's an 8. So let's watch that again. We can't read her number, and we can see her hands, and then as the pitch comes, she hides her hands and does a little bit of an inward turn, and that's the windup before the swing. So here's how an elite softball player hides her hands. Okay, first we're going to look at hiding your hands. So we can see your hands, and there you go. You hide them a little bit, but they kind of go straight up and straight back. You might want to work on a little bit more of an inward turn, or you can see you never really do an inward turn with your shoulders. So work on a little bit more of an inward turn and a little bit more hiding your hands right by your back shoulder. Okay, the second thing we're going to look at with Andrea Duran is her bat plane. And what we want to see is the bat staying on plane all the way through the swing. Now you can see that her bat right now is flat on her shoulder, and that's okay. It doesn't really matter where it's at right now because she's just in her stance and she's relaxed. But what we care about is at this position right here, right as she gets ready to swing, does her bat stay on plane? And if it does, that leads to a more powerful, efficient swing. So I'm going to draw a line right through here. And you can see that the bat and the lead arm and the shoulders are all on the same plane. And as she rotates around and swings, the bat stays on that plane and she follows through on that same plane. So this is a more powerful, efficient swing if you do this. So we get the bat on plane and it stays on plane and it doesn't drop down or do anything crazy through the whole swing. So that's called keeping your bat on plane. Now we're going to look at your bat plane. Ideally we want the arm and the bat to all rotate on the same plane. That's going to lead to your best swing. And you can see here that your bat falls off the plane there and your arm falls off the plane as well. And what you're doing, and one reason, is you're rotating your front elbow flat right along that green line. What we want to do is rotate our arm and the bat all along that red line, and then that'll make sure that everything stays on plane. Now we're going to take a look at Nikki Williams from the University of Washington. She's going to help us with our next few items. So now we're going to look at number 3, which is the back elbow. Now notice when she starts, she doesn't start with her back elbow really high and her front elbow really high. If you look at some girls, some of the younger girls, they start with their elbows really high. There's really nothing good that comes out of that. She starts in more of this upside down V position, which is a more relaxed way to start your swing. So then as she begins to swing, the back elbow comes up, but the important thing is it gets connected to the hip, and then the back elbow and the hip rotate at the same time all the way to impact. And then right when she hits the ball, her back elbow is bent. Now it straightens after she hits, but it is bent at impact. That's very important. We do not want a straight back elbow at impact. That means you're pushing at the ball, and that doesn't lead to a powerful swing. And also the back elbow is not creeping towards her belly button or getting ahead of the hip. What happens is the back elbow and the hip rotate at about the same time. Okay, now we're going to take a look at your back elbow. And you can see as you swing here, your elbow gets ahead of your hip. So that means you're basically using a lot of just arms to swing the bat. You're not using your big muscles. You can see how it gets ahead of your hip there. And then you're just kind of pushing your arms out. So if you can figure out and get your back elbow connected with your hip right there, and then have them rotate at the same time as you rotate your shoulders and your hips, that'll lead to a more powerful swing. And then your elbows and your hands won't get ahead of yourself like they are right there. Okay, now we're going to look at number 4, which is the palm up, palm down position. And here we have Nikki Williams from Washington and Katie Cochran on the right from Arizona State. And you can see right when they impact the ball, they are palm up and palm down. Their hands are not turning over as they hit the ball. They are palm up, palm down. And another important thing to look at right at impact is look at their lead leg. It is straight. So it moves. You can see here, we'll show Nikki Williams on the left. It's nice and loose and flexed all the way to impact, and then right at impact it locks. And same thing with Katie Cochran. It's nice and loose and flexed, and then right at impact it locks. So here's our impact position. The lead leg is straight, the knee is firm, and we are palm up, palm down. Now we're going to look at palm up, palm down, and your front leg. So you do a good job of being palm up, palm down. You're not rolling your wrists, which is good. But since your hands and everything's getting ahead of yourself, that's kind of causing your front leg to not get straight when you impact the ball. So that's something you should work on, and that again is a locked front leg right when you impact the ball and not having it be bent like it is right here. But good job on the palm up, palm down. Okay, now we're going to look at the 5th thing, which is making sure that we use our whole body. And that means using Ike-Mikey shoulders and rotating our back knee to face the pitcher. So first, let's just look at the knee. Here's Andrea Duran on the left. And let's make sure that she rotates and her back knee faces the pitcher. Sure does. So she has to come up and rotate up onto her back toes, and her back knee is facing the pitcher. And then if we look at Jessica Mendoza, same way. And the back knee faces the pitcher. So that makes sure that she's rotating her hips. So back knee and your belly button face the pitcher. Then we go back and look at the shoulders. And this is important. There's a couple things to look at here. So on the left here we have Duran. She's at Ike there. Her chin is touching her left shoulder. And then when she rotates, her chin touches her right shoulder. Ike-Mikey. And then Jessica Mendoza, same way. There her chin touches her shoulder, Ike. And then when she rotates so much she rips the bat out of her backhand. And there she finishes at Mikey. So we're rotating the hips and the shoulders. But the big thing about the shoulder is if you watch over here, Andrea Duran, her front shoulder keeps rotating all the way until she hits the ball. You can see that. And if we go back to Jessica over here, the front shoulder keeps rotating all the way until she would have hit the ball. So the shoulders keep rotating. What we're going to see in some of the swing analysis is that the front shoulder stops rotating, and then that's when they push their back arm. Now we're going to look at Ike-Mikey shoulders and back knee to pitcher. So first we'll look at back knee to pitcher, and you rotate your back knee to pitcher right there, which is good. Now we'll look at Ike-Mikey shoulders. There you're at Ike, and you rotate around, and you finish at Mikey. So that's a good job there too. But the one thing we talked about, your hands getting ahead of yourself, you're hitting the ball at the green line. and you're almost hitting it too far out in front. You need to wait a little bit further. You should be hitting the ball right there at about the red line. So that's something to work on, is letting the ball get a little bit deeper before you hit it. But good job on the Nita pitcher and the Ikey Mikey. Okay, and now the last thing we're going to look at is vision. Good hitters have good vision. They see the ball and they watch the ball all the way to their bat. So let's look at two of the best players that ever played the game. You can see Duran, she's looking right at the pitcher, and then as the ball comes in, her eyes track, and you can see right there, her eyes are now right on the ball, and then she hits the ball. So she has great vision and watches the ball all the way to her bat. On the right side, we have Mendoza. She's looking at the pitcher out this way right now, and you can see as the ball comes in, her eyes track that ball all the way to the bat. So good hitters have good vision, watch the ball hit the bat. And the last thing we'll take a look at is the vision. So there you can see your eyes are looking at the pitcher. But since you're trying to hit the ball too far out in front, it kind of looks like your eyes are still out here. Ideally, again, you want the ball to get a little bit deeper, and maybe about right there. So that's about where you should be hitting the ball off your front foot, and we should see your eyes looking straight down there. So you need to work on watching the ball get a little bit deeper in the zone before you hit it.